the universe. 24 hours of music and talk. Radio without limits. That's why people keep coming back for more. That's ubnradio.com.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Both Sides Now. I'm Dr. Shirley.
And I'm Medium Kelly White.
So this is our number 2 show, and John, our wonderful engineer, is with us today.
Yes, it's great to be back. Thank you.
Yay! So for anyone who heard last show and know me from the Dr. Shirley and Steve show, you might have noticed that there's another song that ends our show that isn't Copacabana with my favorite Barry Manilow.
Sorry, Barry.
So for those that thought, hey, what happened? Maybe she's not into Barry anymore? What's going on? No, I'm definitely still into Barry. Love him. He still loves me. I'm sure of it.
And you got to meet him.
But yes, I did. So adorable. But anyways, just wanted to let you know that Barry and I are still fine. Mm-hmm. We've just changed the music because it fits our show a little bit better, right?
Both sides now.
Both sides now, right? Not that any of Barry's songs wouldn't fit our show, but you know, we're gonna give him a rest. He's been working so hard.
Good.
Yeah. So, anyways, why don't you introduce our guest for today? Because I'm excited.
Oh, I'm so excited. We are so happy to have a fabulous guest and a dear friend. Dr. Kathy Forti is here with us.
That's the audience from the other side.
Oh, Kelly, Shirley, I have to say I'm a closet Barry Manilow fan too.
Yay! So excited. So welcome so much. I'm so glad that you're here because your story is fascinating. The first time I heard it, I was just amazed, and now you've written a book, and it's amazing. And so I just can't wait for everyone to hear what you have to say.
Kathy, I should mention, is also a psychologist.
Yes.
A PhD. Very bright. She had a near-death experience, and an incredible story came out of this. And what I'd like you to do, before you even talk about yourself, because we have so many questions for you, can you tell us explain near-death experience for people that wouldn't know?
Yeah, that term gets bandied around a lot, and there's kind of some clear definitions. I've heard someone say, I had a near-death experience, and they were just chronically ill, that they were close to death, but they actually didn't have a passing over into the other dimension or side experience. So those two kind of sometimes get lumped together, or I had an out-of-body experience and I was sick and so forth. But the real, when I talk about near-death experience, I mean that something happened that maybe your heart stopped. In my case, that was what happened. And you found yourself going through the tunnel, the tunnel that everybody talks about. Right. You might have seen the light. You may have moved over into another dimension, whether you might have seen beings or helpers or deceased loved ones or so forth like that. And when I talk about near death, I really talk more about that aspect of it, not, because at the time I did not know my heart had stopped.
Wow. How did you find all that out?
Oh, my God, it was such a long process. But this happened back to me in 2003.
Wow.
And, it seems like so long ago. And it was May of 2003, and it was on a Wesak moon.
Oh, my God. So for those who don't know, a Wesak moon is a very, very powerful moon. It's always in May, and it represents the Buddha and the Christ coming together and pouring their love and compassion onto our planet. And the reason that happens, or into this dimension, and the reason that happens is to raise everybody's vibration for love and compassion. And it happened on that day. That could not be more significant.
Wow.
It didn't. And, I had never heard of that. I was seeing clients at the time. It was the evening. And I had a client in there who was a Buddhist. And she said to me before she left, this is the Wesak moon. It's incredible and so forth. And I thought, okay, great. I just want to go home. It's been a long day, As I was on my way to my car, I remember just glancing up and seeing the moon. And it didn't really look any different than, I didn't than I thought it would. So, but as I went to my car, I suddenly felt this whoosh out of my solar plexus area, and immediately with that came this profound sense of emptiness, that I was done with my work here on Earth as I knew it, which was like I'd never had that feeling
Did
before.
it feel like you had left your body?
No, it felt like something had left my body, but not me. You know? And it was like losing your best friend, like losing your whole family. This bereft sense of total emptiness, like I'm nothing but an empty vessel now, which was very strange.
So this happens as you're going home that day,
going to my car,
going to your car
after
to drive
working.
home.
Yes,
and nothing different, but all of a sudden you feel this, and that sensation you describe as you're empty.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know it at the time. Is that all my old guidance? My, what you want to call, either guardian angels or spirit guides or whatever, had left. And I had no idea that I had all these. I mean, I figured, we had some higher guidance and so forth, but I didn't know I had a host of them with me already. And they left. And when they left, that was what they left behind, this sense of emptiness. And they were preparing me for something new coming. But, all that didn't come out until later.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but just to make sense of what this emptiness. And, I'd read a lot of books, and I had never seen anybody talk about, if your spirit guides or so forth have decided to move out and, preparing for something else, that you would feel this way.
I've never even heard of that. That is just remarkable to me, because I work with spirit guides, and we were just talking about spirit guides it's been my experience that they stay and remain with you.
Well, you would think so.
So
I guess sometimes they move out and others move in. Okay.
So it was literally a profound shift.
It was a shift, and immediately I went into my clinical psych mode. Am I depressed? Am I anxious? What are all these feelings of being done with my work here on Earth? What's all that about?
Yeah.
And I knew I wasn't feeling anxious about anything. There was nothing really depressing going on in my life at the time. I was searching for anything to make sense of this feeling, and I wasn't really getting any answers until I went home. I drove home. I was able to drive. It wasn't like I was physically impaired or anything.
Yeah.
And I went home, and I was sitting there thinking about it, over analyzing. My mother always says, you think too much. And
that's the nature of our job, isn't it?
Yes. And as I was thinking, I suddenly found the swirling vortex in my mind's eye, and it just was speeding up faster and faster. And the next thing I knew, I was sucked into this vortex. And a very strange way, I was like you would think on some kind of conveyor belt. I was horizontal, feet first, and I kept thinking, the weirdest thoughts go through your mind sometimes during these situations.
Yeah.
Like, is this the right way to go through the tunnel?
Right.
So in your mind, you actually thought you were going through the tunnel.
Oh, I saw that there was light at the end of the tunnel, and immediately thought, is this the tunnel everyone's been talking about? And then the next thought was, did I die? What did I die of? I wasn't sick.
So at this point, you're sitting there at home, maybe over-analyzing or analyzing why you were feeling, what was going on. Did you fall asleep?
No. In fact, I had a cup of tea in my hand. Later, when I came back into, after this experience, it was all over the place.
Oh, wow.
But I went into the tunnel, and, I remember thinking, well, if I died, I don't know what I died of, but if I died, there's not much I can do about it now. And let's just go see what it's all about. This is kind of your adventure. I mean,
Had you made peace with that fact that you may have died?
Well, it wasn't like I had anybody left behind to really, I wasn't married at the time, and I didn't have children, and both my parents were still alive at that time, and I felt okay with it. It was kind of strange. And I guess you feel like there's not much you can do about it. You can't crawl your way back through the tunnel and say, I'm not going.
If you're seeing the tunnel, then what are you going to do, right?
That's right. Just go with the flow.
Right, exactly.
Because if you don't, I've learned in life, if you try to go against the flow, it's not going to be pleasant.
Just makes it harder, right?
Exactly. So as I'm going towards this light, and I'm thinking, oh my God, this is it. I screeched to a halt right before I go into the light, and I just hovered there, and I'm thinking to myself, like I'm trying to move myself into the light, will myself
Come on,
into
if
the
you're
light.
already there, you might as well go into
That's
the
right.
light.
And I couldn't understand why I couldn't go in.
Yeah.
And I tried what I thought, whatever I could do. And I remember this thought, well, this is boring. And with the thought that this is boring, all of this energy poured into me. And when it poured into me, it was like an implosion, and it spun me back around in the tunnel, going back through the tunnel as fast as it could be, the same way, horizontal feet first. And the next thing, I found myself back in my physical body, and my whole left side was paralyzed. And I hear voices in my head saying, breathe, Kathy, breathe. And of course, there's nobody else in the room, just these voices in my head. And you know what it's like when you're a clinical psychologist and you're your patient reports to you hearing voices in their head.
Right. And what you're thinking, now you're hearing them. And
right. It's time to refer them to the psych, to get some medication or whatever.
Yeah.
But there was not much I could do. So I just paid. They were telling me, relax, everything will be okay. And I was like, click, 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 click. It took a little while. They were clicking all the parts of me back into place on my left side because I couldn't move. And then all of a sudden I could feel myself back in my physical body. And I knew, without being told, that they were trying to get me to breathe life back into my physical form, that somehow my heart had stopped. And there's no way I could ever prove this because I wasn't in a hospital at the time.
Right.
But that my heart had stopped. And here I was back again. And I remember there was just a little pressure still going on in my chest area, and thinking to myself, oh gosh, now I got to go see a cardiologist. And, did I do some damage to my heart? Will I be physically? And, they could hear all my thoughts, obviously. And they're telling me, no, everything will be okay. You don't need to see a cardiologist. and that it will be fine. So of course I didn't go to the doctor, and within a day that feeling of that pressure in my chest left. But what was replaced with it was an obsession with quantum physics.
Had you ever studied quantum physics? Did you know anything about it?
In passing, but, I hadn't really done any research into that area. I have to say sciences and the math were not my forte.
Very good.
So, it's, I'm not a scientist, and I figured I never had to really excel in that area because I was going to be a clinical psychologist. So, Yeah. So this was happening, every night I was getting up between 3 and 4 a.m. and sort of like that magic hour.
Yes, yes it is.
I didn't know that at the time. The kind of the world quiets down during that time.
Yeah.
And, a lot more energy can be moved. And I'd be wide awake and I'd be woken up, and it was sort of like I was like, really kind of pushed to go to my computer and start researching all these thoughts that were running through my head on energy, on the universe, on quarks, on wormholes, on math, on Nikola Tesla, who I hadn't really known much about at the time. And it went on and on and on. And until I really researched it, I couldn't be at peace. It became like this magnificent obsession.
So you would, after that, and you felt okay, the next day you kept going to work, and you just noticed waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and then just going to the computer and doing a whole bunch of research.
Yeah, I'd be there for maybe an hour or two or so forth and go back to bed, but I wasn't really tired. But I did notice that I was starting to feel my clients' stuff.
Oh my goodness. So before this, you could separate yourself?
Yeah. No, it was sort of like all of a sudden it's like, why am I feeling so angry? Well, it was like my client's anger I was feeling and so forth like that. And I realized that somehow in the tunnel, I'd become a little bit more sensitive to picking up people's emotions, especially if they were strong emotions.
Yes.
And, you had to kind of realize what is theirs and what's mine.
Right. Yeah.
Separate
Kathy, that actually, after my traumatic brain injury, that happened to me. I just realized that, where I would pick up things where people would, if I knew that, I don't know, if I didn't know and all of a sudden they had a headache, I'd get a headache. Or if they were really angry, that I'd go in that direction. It was really amazing. There's something about that spiritually that occurs.
Empaths.
Yeah.
Empaths.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's not very pleasant feeling.
No,
No,
it
it's
is
not.
not. It is not.
Yeah, because and I didn't know what I could do about it really, but it kind of persisted, until I finally didn't know what to make of it. Oh well, when I was researching on the web, these voices in my head were really leading me to certain things on the web to look up, the internet and so forth, and they were correcting what I was reading. Sort of like, well, that's as far as your race has gotten so far. That's not totally accurate, but that's your understanding, and that will be corrected in time because we're just evolving. And it's like, well, who are these people?
Right.
Coming through. So I had to, since I didn't know what else to do, I did know I didn't know Kelly at the time. And so I called up this gentleman who had worked with a number of therapists over the years. He lived in a different state, and he could kind of go behind the scenes. All he needed was a person's name. He never asked anything about the person, so it wouldn't be colored, the reading or anything like this. And I just said, can you take a look behind the scenes? He'd been very helpful with me and some clients that I'd had over the years who, with their permission, he was able to look and see what else was going on. But anyway, he looked and he said, it took a long time, which kind of scared me, when they take too much time to look at what's going on. He goes, well, you almost died. And I'm thinking, well, yeah. And he said, but all your old guides are gone. Now, that's the first I'd heard, that was, and he says they actually left. Physically left, and he says you have a whole new set of guides. They're very technologically oriented, very geeky, you might say. He says they're kind of funny too, but he says they said you came back to do this. It looks like you're going to do some type of medical device, or you're going to. He says they're showing me pictures of it, images. And he said, you're going to invent this thing. And I just said to him, well, I don't know anything about inventing. I don't know anything about medical devices and things like that. I thought he had lost his mind. And he says, no, they're showing me that it will, they will lead you to the right people that will be instrumental in helping you. And that this will come to you. It's an evolutionary process, you might say. And so, I just thought, oh, well, he's finally wrong about that because, and he said it was changed the way people thought about healing. I didn't know what that meant. And I thought, well, he's finally wrong.
Now, was he a psychic that you used to?
Yes. A very talented one. He doesn't do readings anymore in case people call in the show, what's his name or anything like that. Because that takes a lot of energy out of people. He was really pretty incredible. So he helped me in that respect, and so I couldn't let go of this, whatever this idea, even though I thought, well, this can't be my path. But, as I use the words a lot, magnificent obsession. I love that old movie with the Jane Wyman and Rock Hudson and so forth like that. And that's pretty much what it became. And so I thought, well, if I'm supposed to do this device, let me go out and find some scientists out there that I can work with. And if information is going to be coming through, okay, well, so I did try to bring in other people. And every time I did, everything would go wrong. It was like blockages left and right. I mean, really unusual blockages, and it happened more than once with two different people. And I finally threw up my hands and I said, well, I don't know what you guys want, and it was really loud and clear because they'd been very silent in my process. And I thought, okay, well, I'm doing the right thing now, until I finally said, I don't know what you want, I give up. And they said, well, we want you to do it, not them.
Oh my God. But because we have free will here.
Yes, they couldn't say you do it or else. I had to go through that process, and I thought, I can't do this. I didn't think that I had any abilities to do this, nor the talent, and so I had to really think about that. And then I thought, well, if they're going to help me, okay, let's just kind of put the trust in and see where it takes me. And that began a 5-year journey of putting together a technology that came through that was all based on math. and that everything in the universe had a mathematical signature to it. Our DNA is mathematically coded. Vitamin C, even I use that as an example, has a mathematical equation to it. And that if you give that information to the body, it's almost like taking it in, actually ingesting it, the actual substance. And that thought was really kind of interesting to me, that, that could be possible. And they said, everything is about math. And all I could think of was, at the time, that was my worst subject in school.
Mine too.
I did everything to try and avoid, higher math classes or anything like that. And I thought, oh, good, I don't need to learn that because I'm going to be a psychologist.
Right,
I can certainly balance my checkbook, but I don't need to know higher math.
Other than stats, that was it.
Yeah. So, it was. I usually say, sometimes your worst nightmares, come in the form of, and this turned out to be really a blessing and present in disguise as I started to work with them on, channeling through thousands of different substances and things like that had, and I would just sit there, it's not like all of a sudden, but sometimes I would have whole pictures come into my head. Sometimes I'd hear the words, and sometimes I just have like a download of information that I didn't feel I had any privy to or knowledge to beforehand. So it worked kind of in different ways, but with the actual coding of all these different over 5,000 different substances, I would just sit there almost like in meditation, and they would give me the numbers.
So, for example, like the numbers of vitamin C.
Yeah.
And so then you would code them into the computer.
Yes, it could be a whole string of numbers. And then once those numbers were put into a software-based program, which is where I was heading with all of this, then they were put into binary code, zeros and ones, which is computer language. And, if you talk to scientists, they know zeros and ones are, has infinite information in there. And they said, the body takes in information. It's like this master computer. We have souls, obviously, but our bodies respond to programming, whether it be our thoughts or information. Well, thoughts, they're both one and the same. So that began this process, and I thought, what am I inventing here? And they didn't show me everything at once, probably because I would have gone stark raving mad.
No doubt.
So as you're telling the story, so after every night, just waking up at 3 and having these thoughts in your mind, and you just kind of went with it and decided to just go with it.
Well, the process of being on the computer stopped after a while. That was sort of like physics 101, getting me up to speed, on some things that they wanted me to know what was already out there and known, which was not a part of my world. So that became understandable until I moved into the next phase where then I could listen. But at times I said later, why did you pick me? I'm a math dummy. Why didn't you pick a mathematician who would understand all this stuff? There's plenty of them out there. And they picked me because I was a math dummy. And because I did not have any preconceived notions, well, this can't work. Math can't do that. This is not the way it's supposed to be.
So you didn't
I didn't
question
even
anything.
know. I couldn't question it. I just thought, oh, okay, well, this is the way it's supposed to be. And because of that, I could think outside the box without that hindering of school and dogma and everything else that kind of slows you down and kind of pollutes the train of free thinking.
Yeah. Wow.
So and so it's so not only did we put all these what I call algorithms, mathematical algorithms, but the device which was to be called Trinfinity 8.
How did you come up with that name?
Well, they came up with it, Trinity and Infinity,
Oh, right, okay. Trinfinity.
And 8 was also a sign of rejuvenation, and I was born on the 8th, so, sort of, I said, okay.
well, it's also, if you put it to the side, it's the infinity.
Exactly. So there was, and it had a vibration all of its own. Then, they told me there had to be fractals within this device as well. And I, at the time, what is a fractal? And a fractal is, I always say, it's like those little Russian matryoshka dolls, a doll within a doll within a doll to infinity.
Right.
There's slight differences, but every little, if you zoom into it, it contains the whole. And those, when you couple those with math, it amplifies the information coming through. So the fractals served as an amplifier in this device they were creating with me.
But
I was creating, they were creating with me, right?
is a fractal like something you can? I mean, is it a substance or is
no? We used animated fractals, and there's almost like swirling images that are filled with sacred geometry and golden mean, and certain that are key mathematical formulas. And in this case, we used animated one to create what we called like a fractal field. And if you go anywhere near these animated fractals on the computer screen, you're drawn right in, and you can almost start to feel the energy around the person. But it was used primarily to enhance the codes. And that at the same time, they were like, well, I was like, how do, I can put it in a Mac and a PC version software, but how do I deliver these mathematical codes to the body? I've got these fractals, I got this sacred geometry. They even had me use special tones that would enhance set up the resonance in the body to take these codes. And, they started showing me pictures of Superman in the Fortress of Solitude, where he's downloading all the crystals about his race, the history of his race. And they look for things in your mind that you can already relate
absolutely.
to. Right.
Instead of reinventing the wheel. And of course, I'd seen the Superman movies, and I'm seeing them with these crystals, and I'm thinking, crystals? Now, do I go to some type of New Age bookstore or something and find crystals? How is this going to work? And they basically showed me that these had to be grown in a lab, these crystals, for clarity. And so it took me 6 months to find a lab in the world that would grow them. It takes a month to grow each of these crystals from a little seed crystal. That they add the seed crystal, then they add the silicon dioxide, and they grow it in this autoclave slowly over time. And it's four-sided, and it had to be double terminated. It had to be a certain length, and I had to connect them in to wires that actually went into the USB port of a computer. Like, nobody's ever connected crystal rods. I mean, they almost look like glass. They're so clear because it had to be clear to take the information and immediately let go of it, discharge it without holding it into the crystal. So I found out a lot about crystals at that time. And so, when a person is holding these crystals in their hand and the information is coming through to the computer, you can, and there's no electrical current coming through, you can feel like a little tingling, a warmth, a pulsing sensation. If you're extremely sensitive, like some of the intuitives and psychics that get on and sometimes use this, they have reported having their own guides come through and watch what's going on and interact with them on a higher level. In fact, we've had some really strange experiences where people would say, the mouse is moving on its own on the computer when I'm on your program, and it's picking things that I normally wouldn't pick. And at first I thought, is there a computer bug? Is there a virus? Because, what computer does he have? Or I've had people say, I was watching the fractals on the screen and they came out at me in 3 dimension. And I'm like, it did? What kind of computer brand do you have? But at first I just thought these were random things. And then I started to hear some more of these experiences, and I realized, and my guides had told me, that people's guides knew what this device was for. Wow. It was to help them shift to a higher vibrational level where then all healing and rejuvenation was possible. Now, I'm not saying my device heals or anything. We all know we heal ourselves.
Right.
But, it put the body, the soul, the spirit in a place where it was more open to that information coming through, where one's own higher guidance can then interact with you. And it was an intent-based machine as well.
Wow. Wow. And what kind of healing is it used for? What are the different types of healing that can be helped?
Well, it evolved over time. It was there's 72 different programs dealing anywhere from emotional release problems to physical problems to spiritual, connection. Like, we have one that's divine alignment, connecting with your own guidance. Another one that's heart resonance, which opens the heart to giving and receiving love, and forgiveness, which is a big one. And then we have some anti-aging ones in there. I hate to say anti-aging because that's sort of like a double negative. I mean, usually rejuvenation and restoration. And, it does slow down the aging process. There's no doubt about it.
Well, you look incredible.
Wow.
So there you go.
Wow.
Yes. And we all live in the Hollywood, the
Right.
capital of the world for cosmetic surgery, and I haven't ever had any.
Really? Wow. So then this is what, a computerized program that comes with...
It's a software-based program that has attachments. It has a signal box. It has, cables. It has the crystals and so forth like that. Some people can use it. They can actually put the crystals on areas of their body, that maybe are experiencing injury or pain, or even on their face. We have an esthetician. We actually have a guy who's a surgeon in Beverly Hills who uses it to speed up tissue repair on his clients. Wow. While I have a few that are estheticians in the area that use it for facials. Wow. And so that to lines, wrinkles, and so forth like that. But we found out some weird things when we working with this device, that there was a program in there kind of to help if people had lines or wrinkles around the lips too. Because I thought, it should have something for everybody in it.
Right.
Maybe we'll bring them here through anti-aging and maybe help them spiritually, in the process. And I had a psychiatrist using this in North Carolina. And she decided to use the LIPS program on one of her female clients. And she reported back that this woman started speaking up for herself.
Wow.
Because it was the lips area energetically. It addressed that whole area. She was not able to, defend herself, not able to speak her needs, voice that. And energetically, it worked on that area.
The fifth chakra.
Yeah. And we would never have known that.
Wow.
So we found out a lot of interesting things that this guidance and then people always ask, well, who are these guys?
Yeah.
Who are these guys that brought back this thing? They told me they were from the 8th dimension and beyond.
Wow.
They call themselves the founders. They said they've been here since the beginning of time, that they were involved in the evolution, the beginning evolutionary of our race, but they were not they were not involved in tampering with our DNA, which there's been some along the way, which is another probably program here, not today. And that they came back during key times in our evolutionary process, which is right now. They said we're all, as a human race, shifting, going more from a 3rd dimension to a 4th, 5th dimension, and that's why everyone is feeling such tremendous chaos in their life right now. Or they're either, as I say, they're either getting chronically ill because it's really hard to navigate that really fast, chaotic energy that's happening, or they're checking out of the planet. They're saying, okay, I don't think I want to be around during these times.
Well, the planet itself, Earth itself, is raising. The vibration is raising. So the planet is raising. So what will happen is everybody will have to come up. It just will happen. And if they can't physically take it or emotionally take it, they will not want to be here.
So the different dimensions have higher vibrations?
Well, the 8th dimension and beyond is a pure service to others. It's a Christ-like dimension. It's not serving self at all. There's no such thing as, greed and, bankers like we have the problem here on planet Earth. And so it's really, and their dimensions interact and impact our dimension impacts their dimension and vice versa. So they have a vested interest in helping us because as we're shifting, if there's blockages, that affects other dimensions too. So, no man is an island. We're all in this together,
Yeah.
I fact, as I was coming in, there was this woman on the street there, and she looked like a panhandler. She was sitting down. She had some signs. I didn't read the sign, but I figured the sign must have said, "Please help, I'm homeless," or so. So I took some money out of my purse to give it to her, and she looks up at me. She goes, "I'm not a panhandler."
Oh my gosh.
I said, "I'm so sorry."
Wow.
Oops.
Wow.
Oops. I mean, she certainly looked like one. But, it's sort of like, so you don't know the person on the street who may look like, they don't have any money and are homeless, may be more evolved than you are.
Absolutely.
And, it's important to help them too.
So this is now out and people are using it.
Yes.
Are you training people to use it, or are individuals buying it, or is it, as you said, the plastic surgeon to use it with his clients and the patients?
We have a lot of practitioners using it because, they find that we have, whether they be psychologists or MDs, or we have some chiropractors, we have acupuncturists, we have Reiki people, we have, the list goes on, naturopaths, homeopaths, so forth. Some of them use it standalone, and some of it use it in conjunction with their already existing modalities that they're practicing to amplify what they're doing, especially with really resistant clients.
Mm-hmm. I had a situation with it. I was so impressed. I had no idea. I actually fell a couple of months ago, and I broke my left arm and my right foot. And I was in pretty bad shape. And you had volunteered when I told you what had happened, and you and a friend of ours, Judy Friedman, who's a Reiki master, and the two of you did their stuff on me without me really knowing what time or anything. I had no idea what time.
See,
I was so out of it, I didn't have
it.
a clue. And all of a sudden, I felt this tingling in my ankle. I mean, really tingling, then all the way up. I said, "What's going on here?" Then I kind of forgot about it, and then it happened again. That's not really odd. Oh, no, I'm going to have to go to another doctor. I mean, I really, thought, I have a big problem here. And then the damnedest thing, I got a text from Judy, and she said, I started this work on your foot now, and, you should be feeling this. And I'm like, what? I couldn't get over it. And then my arm healed really quickly. It was really extraordinary. Thank you. I mean, it's something else, this thing. And then I told my mom about it, and she had some work done with her, and really helpful, really helpful.
Well, you probably say, we have to tell you that this device you can use long distance remotely with a person. That
right.
was the missing component.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Well, that's what I was
right.
going to ask you based on your story. So what about the crystals then? I mean, how do you...
Well, separateness is an illusion. Everything, is wireless, whether it be intent, whether it be energy, and so forth like that. So we discovered early on that we could, with the client's permission, I always tell people never, ever do a remote session with a person unless you have they're okay on it, and unless it's a young child or somebody in a coma, and then you just ask their higher guidance really to, if it's needed, take it in and work with it if it's permissible. So what they told us to do was just to take the person's name and on 3 times on a piece of paper, but 3s are very powerful in the energetic world. I learned. Thank you, Nikola Tesla. He said if everybody knew the power of 3, 6, and 9, they would have the keys to the universe.
Wow.
And so we'd put the name 3 times on a piece of paper. Then we'd put the crystals like in an inverted upside down V, so that the tips
like
were
a
touching.
pyramid.
On laying flat on the name, and put the earphones over it so that the music was resonating, the crystals, the name, or we could use a photo too. And then we just type in, healing for Kelly or something like that in the protocol that, the different treatments, programs that we put in depending on what you needed. Like, maybe it would be tissue repair or, release or muscles or something or nerves or whatever. Or sometimes it's just to release oppression, the heaviness, the weight of what we carry in the world, whether it be the negativity around us or whatnot. And we found that we could be just as effective that way. In fact, our therapists all over the world, most of them times they say over 90% of their clients are remote long distance. I have one in Connecticut, and she works with nothing but over like 500-600 clients that have nothing but Lyme's disease. And so anyone who has it, I just send them to her because she's found the kind of like I have to say kind of like the magic formula for it, because this Lyme's disease out there, which I won't get into now, is like a whole different bag than the Lyme's disease from years ago. But so it's everybody has kind of gets their little specialty, whether it's to be used for emotional release or the Reiki, like Judy. She has a Reiki specialty, and she uses it for anything that deals with injury.
Well, she also did that for my daughter, who was taking her licensing exam for her for psychology, and cleared her brain so well, and she slept like a baby the night before the test. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's we've had people tell us, if they're in surgery, they run them remotely, so it speeds up, that their recovery time. Or we've had people, ask us, I'm going to be doing my licensing exam, or I'm going to be doing. I had somebody who was doing her military physical fitness exam, and so it was run on her, and. She did things like increase muscle strength and boost energy and things like that. And she at the time she took it, she'd been in the military, the reserve for, I don't know, about 30 years or so. And she said, and she's in her 50s. And she said it was the highest rating she'd ever used. And I jokingly said, well, don't you want to share this with your, your company, your regiment, your platoon, whatever you call it? She goes, nope. She says, I've got an advantage here.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
So true.
Wow. So how did you start telling people about it, in the medical world and stuff like that, of course, because I'm thinking, oh my God, how do you go out with something like this? I would assume that it's based in numbers and algorithms. People know, and that makes sense, to people.
Well, I didn't know what I had here, really, and I thought, oh, well, maybe if I sell one or two of these, I might be able to break even somewhere down the line, and I thought, I just prayed. I said, dear God, please do not send me on a fool's mission, that I'm not doing something that has no value whatsoever and can't help anybody, or even worse yet, hurt somebody.
Right.
And so I was led to take it to a show that was the International Society for the Study of Subtle Energy Medicine. All the big energy workers from around the world came to this show. And it was my first trade show. And so I took a booth and put 2 devices out there, invited anybody they wanted to take it and test it and try it, free, everything, And before I knew it, there was lines at my booth.
Wow.
And they were pulling everybody over. And a lot of these people could see things that I couldn't, what was happening around the body. And they're talking excitedly. And one woman is saying, I'm seeing sharding coming out of the body right now. It's very strange. And I looked over, and what was playing was Release Emotional Blockage.
Wow.
Or there was one, she says, oh, no, I'm seeing this beautiful plumping thing coming out of the body. It's very, very nice. And it was Balance Energy Centers. Wow. And so I had this one guy come off the device. He was an optometrist. And I didn't know at the time that he was also a medical intuitive. And he came off the device crying. And I thought, oh my God, what had happened? Did he have a bad, experience or so forth? And he came to me and he said, I just want you to know, I saw all these beings of light while I was on this device. And I saw that were responsible for this device. Not at the time. I was not telling anybody this had come out of a near-death experience.
Right.
And he said, all my own guides can come forward, and they were using this device to help tune my psychic abilities. It was like dialing a radio dial. And he says, and it felt so sharp. And he says, and then this man came forward who identified himself as your father. Now, my father had died, shortly after I had my near-death experience, which later I helped him, to know what was happening when he passed over. And he said, your father said, he identified himself as your father, and he just wanted you to know that he was very proud of you, and it was money well spent.
Wow.
And those are exactly the words my father always used. It's I
bet that
money
was
well
comforting
spent.
to you.
Yeah. Well, I burst out into tears.
I bet. Well, because I would imagine that you used your own money, because to try and get investors to do something like this, I would guess would be nearly impossible.
Well, my father died about a month after I had my near-death experience. Wow. And then my mother about a year after that.
Wow.
And I didn't find out till later that they had made some type of agreement on a soul level to bow out at a certain time so that inheritance monies would be made available to me, that I wouldn't have to bring in outside investors on this. So, yeah, when he said it was money well spent, and it was funny, the guy that had helped me, the psychic, that told me about the guides and so forth at first, I happened to be talking to him, afterwards, way afterwards, and he said, your father's here. And I said, oh, I didn't know you channeled dead people, because he had never had that happen before. And he goes, yes. And he had some messages for me, but he also wants you to know that you were right. And I said, right? What was I right about? And he said, well, when you told him about your near-death experience, he didn't really believe you.
Oh my
God! But he, nodded and agreed and said, "Oh, that's very interesting." He was
nice.
kind of paying me lip service.
Yeah.
My parents were always supportive, but he wasn't going to say, "I think you're nuts."
Right.
And it was important enough for him to come back through the psychic and tell me that when he passed over, he understood what was happening.
Oh. Huh.
And because he remembered what I had said. And it was an easier process for him.
Wow. So you helped him
Yes.
as well.
Wow.
Yes.
And then he could help your mother.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
Wow.
Quite
That's
a story.
incredible. I know. I mean, that is.
Isn't life really astounding?
It really is. I mean,
Astounding.
it's just amazing. So now it's been how long since you said it took you 5 years to develop?
Yes. So it came out in
Yes.
2009.
Okay.
And there's people all over the world now that use it. Some people just buy it for themselves, and it's really easy to operate. And it's not like the operator has to be there while you dial in what you want, and then the
Right.
person, either is on it or you send it to them. And so it's user friendly. And in fact, people have looked at it and said, did a woman design this device? Because guys, they make it complicated. All the bells, the whistles, and
Right.
it takes 2 weeks of training.
Now, can you do too much? Like, I'm thinking if I had it, I'd put,
You'd have it all the time.
Right.
Yeah, you would.
Yeah, we tell people not to because they look at these 72 programs and it's like being in a candy store.
Right. Yeah.
And we tell them, start off with only 15, 20 minutes of something, because subtle energy, and this is what this is, subtle energy. It's non-Hertzian energy. You may not feel it when you're on unless you're very sensitive, but if it's too much, you're going to feel wiped out afterwards.
Yeah.
So the session is only how long?
So a first session would only be maybe about 15, 20 minutes. And then most people do, anywhere from, 45 minutes to, an hour session once they're okay with that. But we have different settings. We can put it on mild because some people, they need mild. I mean, if you're working on an animal or a young child, you're going to put it on mild.
And, it's for animals as well.
Oh, yeah. We have some
how
that have
fabulous.
used it with nothing but they have stables of horses. They've used it on there. We had one guy, veterinarian, and he was using it in his practice.
Fabulous.
And he was using it especially in the beginning on those, he worked in conjunction with the SPCA type thing, and the dogs that were not able to be adopted due to severe anxiety problems or so forth like that. He was using it on those, and that's what he noticed first, a big difference. It wasn't that they had an illness, but it was to calm the animal down so that they were more adoptable, so that they didn't have to get rid of the animal.
Wow,
Amazing.
that's incredible. So is there like a limit, like an hour a day or once a week?
If there's a chronic situation, you might want to do it, a day. There was once I was at boot camp and I had done some lunges the wrong way and I kind of threw my back out. And it really was hurting. So I put on reduce inflammation and swelling, and I put myself remotely on because I had work to do that day.
Yeah.
And I put it on intense, and I let it run for 6 hours on myself, which I never would have done.
Yeah.
But I was positive I was not, because I could barely move. And I couldn't get an appointment with my chiropractic guy that day. So I put it on. And by the end of the day, I got out of my chair, and I had no pain at all.
Wow.
But normally I would never run that much on anybody.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, I'm used to it.
Yeah.
Right,
After a while, this
right.
is sort of like, it's like I can hear it when it's like in another room playing. It's like a mother knowing its baby's cry.
It's so funny. So if you have it on for someone else, are you affected by it as well? If it's in your office or?
I mean, I can feel the energy if I go in the room, where it's playing, but it doesn't impact me. I don't feel like wiped out from it. I think at some point in time you just kind of you put up what you need, you take in. But people that come into our space always pretty much say, "Oh, I feel so good."
Oh, I've
here."
been to your place. It's incredible.
Wow.
Yeah.
So tell us about the book that just came out. We have a few more minutes, and I definitely want you to talk about that.
Okay, it's called Fractals of God, and a very long subtitle: A Psychologist's Near-Death Experience and Journeys into the Mystical. And you can get it through Amazon. You can get it through for your iBook or for your Kindle or so forth like that. And or you can get the hard version too online. So it's
and it talks about
it's harder
your
to find in bookstores, but it talks about all of my experiences that I had that brought me to this stage.
Yeah.
And, I had some in my childhood, not like this, but it all made sense. It was all preparing me for this time in my life where I was going. And so it's been a real interesting journey.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, thank you,
it's-
Kathy.
It's really mind-blowing.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is.
Completely.
Yeah. Yeah. John, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm just taking it all in. I was like, wow, this is really cool. I would love to see this in action. Would you take it to like the Conscious Life Expo or anything like that?
We have been at the
Okay.
Conscious Life Expo. If you've been there,
Yeah.
we've done a number of shows, and we usually run them free, sessions where everybody else is charging. Because we want people to have that experience, and who knows, a 15-minute session they can come back. I've had people come back the next day and said, I had a shifting a couple hours later that was the only thing it could have been.
Wow.
Wow. Well, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
And they can get it at trifinity8.com, right?
Trinfinity8.com.
Okay, Trinfinity8. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. I have it on the screen there too, so.
All right.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh,
Thanks,
thank you
Kathy.
so much. Thanks for coming. And wishing everybody the rest of a wonderful Sunday, and we will see you next week.
Bye, everybody.
And if you care, don't let them know. Don't give yourself away. I looked at love from both sides now, from give and take, and still somehow it's love's illusions I recall. I really don't know feeling proud to say I love you right out loud. Dreams and schemes and circus crowds, I've looked at life that way.